We can literally carry trauma for years without realizing it until one day something happens that overwhelms us, brings us to a stop, and force us to find a way to heal. And there are many ways to work through trauma. One of them is TRE. We're going to learn more about that from my guest, Ananda Fuchs, who's here, who will share her story of how she worked through trauma and how she came to be a TRE practitioner. Ananda, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really pleased to be here. It's great to be able to have conversations like this, for sure.
Wonderful. So, as you know, I love talking about trauma. That's what both of our work focuses around. So let's jump right in and tell us your story. What happened to you and how did you come to do what you do today?
So it's a lifetime story. It's really I guess we all have our narratives. No, I know we do. And I strongly believe that everyone has at least one story that'll break your heart. And so from that point of departure, really about just cultivating compassion and empathy, firstly with ourselves, which I think is the hardest thing. It's so much easier to feel compassionate for other people, others, whether it's those in our family, even in terms of animals. It's so much easier to pour ourselves unconditionally in that loving understanding, right? But when it comes to ourselves, this is something we're not conditioned to do at all. In fact, it doesn't come through. The only place possibly is in the home, because society doesn't foster that at all. In fact, it pushes the opposite agenda, I believe. So my story didn't begin at the place where I went into complete freeze. It started when I was 3, maybe even possibly before that. Certainly all of us have experienced trauma, even though many people believe that they haven't. Our birth is our first trauma, and all of us have that story. And I think when it comes to a sense of safety, that when our bodies sense that there is threat, that we almost want to come back into that fetal position, that place before we even experienced trauma, for most of us, I think.
Yeah.
So at the age of 3, and I come from a long line of performers and dancers, very theatrical people. My mom offered to send me to either ballet class or gymnastics. And I did one of each, and the ballet class won hands down. And it kind of fed into the family narrative, that here is another performer. Yeah. And so my parallel education was my schooling, and then very strongly this dance environment, this arts, creative, theatrical environment. And often it's perceived from the outside world as being just fantastical, almost
magical.
Yeah, exactly. And it is. Ballet is created for fantasy, for illusion. In fact, theatre generally is, on the whole. What it did do mostly, and this is now in retrospect, is it taught me how to shut my body down in terms of the sensations and connecting with sensations from my inner environment, really, what I was feeling when I was feeling unsafe or under threat in any way. Nobody really understands what's going on until you have to. You've got to, the knowledge kind of finds you, because you don't know what you don't know until you know it. So, and the environment is not a very healthy one. And I know there are many that would disagree with me, but after this lifetime of 5 decades of being involved in that environment, I can honestly say that the only thing that is acceptable is perfection.
Yeah.
We are organic, we are human, and there's no such thing. What does that even mean? But that's what dancers generally strive for, like athletes as well. And so I beat my body into submission for
Mm-hmm.
my whole life. But there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of childhood things, a lot of situations where, I was not feeling 100% safe or stable or secure. And so these things just built, plus the sensation or this generalized feeling of not being enough. Because if you cannot reach that perfection, if you cannot do that many pirouettes or whatever the case may be, then all you're hearing is kind of negative feedback. And this is known in this industry that, you only hear what's wrong, never what's right. And so fighting those battles, plus my own personal battles, built into a kind of armoring, which I never noticed because my body was very well toned, very well conditioned. I had to look a certain way. I had to move in a certain way. And as long as I was doing that, there was a little acceptance. So I enjoyed a very long professional career in dance and theater. And then about 12 years ago, I decided to stop performing, but I'd continued choreographing, which is actually one of my favorite things to do. But it is a crazy place to be because it's all consuming. It's, you don't eat anything but that choreography. You don't sleep very well. Kind of feel like you're losing your mind a little bit. And so 12 years ago, I was just on the cusp of kind of moving into the international arena where I had signed a contract for 3 years between a theater here and a theater in Sweden, and all things were rolling. And one night I kind of knew it was coming, but one night I felt things start to collapse. I didn't know what was collapsing, but I could feel that things were kind of collapsing inward. And the next thing, I found myself kind of immobilized in the fetal position on my kitchen floor, and I could not move.
Sure.
So my nervous system had gone into complete freeze. It had been completely overwhelmed. I was not managing, I was not coping. Single mom of a little girl at the time. And I think it just all got too much. I reached some kind of burnout for sure. And thanks to friends and family, we managed to organize things. And I actually didn't have much of a choice in the matter. I decided that going into the clinic for 21 days was the only way I was going to find any kind of relief from this feeling of being just completely dead and numb, dissociated. I didn't care. It was the strangest experience I've ever had because I've always been very emotional or, yes, like very connected to things. And I just felt completely disconnected and had been for a long time. I think this was my tower moment. Once I had gone into the clinic, I had a kind of team of people. Each person that was in there had a team of people that were working with, that were doing group things, and anything creative was really fantastic. And then one day I saw on the schedule that there was this thing called TRE. And coming from a very physical experience, my life, I wasn't sure that I even wanted to engage. I wasn't trusting my body and what was happening with it, but they kind of expect you to go. You kind of got to go. You got to show up for you. Thank goodness. And I went into this session, and after kind of really experiencing that dissociated feeling, being completely outside of my body for what I realized now was a long time, TRE was the only thing that I'd ever come across that just broke through the seal, kind of softened the armor that I'd built this time. I was quite blown away, actually, because I had not cried for a really long time. I had not felt soft and kind of human in any way. And so when this happened, really kind of felt like I was breaking open. And that was an extreme situation because I was holding on so tight. And I'd been holding on so tight practically my whole life that suddenly here was a modality that not only kind of moved me into a place where I had to soften, but encouraged me to start to develop a different kind of relationship with myself. The first time to actually begin to listen to what was going on the inside of my body instead of shutting and oppressing or shutting it down and suppressing anything that was coming up. Because every time that things came up, I heard my mom's voice and other voices going, don't be such a drama queen. You know, you're way too sensitive for your own good. You've got to put on your big girl panties, toughen up and get out there, you know. And I had been, but I just couldn't do it anymore. So TRE, so that was my very first experience of TRE. And I think that really it really took my breath away because I had not experienced anything that had moved me in that way, not even the dance, which I'd felt quite jaded about for some time.
Yeah. Ananda, can I ask a question here quickly?
Please.
I'm thinking of the dancing, and I think most people would tend to think that that would be a good way of being really in touch with your body, and also because of how you need to interpret the stories that you are dancing, and it's a whole creative process. But you keep on talking about how you shut down. I know that in the ballet world specifically, there's a lot of information going around about sore feet and people having to live with the pain and the agony of, you know, putting almost misforming your body because of the high demands. Is that what you're referring to? Is there more to that? Can you maybe tell us a bit more? But why do you shut down so much as a dancer on a physical level?
Sure. I mean, that's a really, really good question because yes, everything in the world is about being embodied, about somatics, about the release of movement and all of that. And here, what I do have to say is it depends on who is facilitating that movement, what program and with what intention that environment is facilitated or that process is facilitated, and what the intention is behind, kind of offering that. So you in the theater or in the performing arts, what you're doing is you are creating a blank canvas of your body, right? A body that can perform incredible feats that require sometimes 16 hours of the day rehearsals,
Yeah,
really intense, plus performances and going out in community and working with kids from school. So it's a lot of stuff. But essentially what you're doing is you're not telling your story. You're creating a situation that allows you to embody the story of other people or other experiences or other creatures. So the story is not yours. So you're not going in with the intention of releasing what is happening inside the body. You're going into rehearsal or performance or class even to hone the body so that it can do what you tell it to do or someone else tells you what to do. And in the dance world, mostly choreography is created by someone else and then placed onto your body in most places. I didn't come from that particularly. I come from very strong contemporary African dance background. Ballet was how I started. And so we worked with fusions of things. So we had to learn how to do gumboot dance, ndlamu, which is African indigenous work, pansula, hip hop, ballet, release-based work. So all of that is to get the body as flexible as possible so that when a director comes in and the process was through improvisation, again, it is again your response to someone else's story. And here, I think, is a good point to mention that it really depends again on who is running a session and what their intentions are, because often people get into positions where they have, within that small microcosm, that small environment has its own hierarchies and its own power dynamics. And there's very little consciousness around people are treated. I don't, does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I'm thinking, apart from the incredible physical strain because of the strenuous exercise, the activity and the long hours of it, there's also a component of you never being or spending the most of your day, the biggest part of your day in your life, in an environment where you have to suppress or push down who you are and always act something else. So portray another character or another story. So there's little time for you to be yourself and express your own self.
None at all, except when you're able to go into and wear a different hat, and that is either as teacher or choreographer.
That's very interesting. I've never regarded the world of dance or the performing arts from this angle, so it's a very interesting perspective and an inside look into how it actually works.
I don't think many people really know unless you've lived it. And very few people who have lived it will say anything really about it. Because it's, you know, I think performers really are so overly grateful for the opportunity to perform with a company or to have a space to just do what they love or what they know, what they're skilled at. Yeah, so my personal experience is often that the leaders were grappling with their own trauma and not able in any way to really bring that through to consciousness.
Yeah. So that's very interesting, because what we know now with the last couple of decades of research around trauma is how important movement is. But it has to be the right kind of movement and in the right kind of environment and done with the right intention and all those things,
Exactly.
So can you tell us a bit about TRE and how that works specifically for trauma? And I know I've had TRE sessions myself, and I'll share a bit about what my experience was, but I'd love you to explain it to us.
I'd love to hear that story of yours too. So TRE, firstly, if I can just begin by saying that I absolutely love my job. I
That's
really,
wonderful.
and sometimes I feel like this is the very first time in my life that I've found this incredible alignment, the sense of purpose, that works every time. And by working, what I mean is allows space for a person to just be in their body in this present moment. So TRE works specifically with the psoas muscle group, which starts, I mean, it's obviously connected to all parts of the body, but these particular, it's a very big muscle group, and it starts from the bottom rib at the back of the spine, connects to those vertebrae, and then moves through from the back towards the front, through the pelvis. And the best part for me, and why I believe that we are so beautifully designed, is at the top of our thigh bone, the femur, at the back, around about in line with our sitting bones, there's a slit in the femur, in the actual bone, and this psoas muscle inserts itself and connects by fascia inside the bone.
Okay.
Why that's really important is because this set of muscles is responsible for your physical response to threat. So when the kidneys are functioning and they're responding to this message that you're now very unsafe, you have a sixth sense, something is happening, and the body goes into this kind of contraction, then immediately all that adrenaline and cortisol, large amounts of that, which is actually our superpower, is released into the psoas muscle group, so that we are able physically either to hunker down, brace, to fight our way out of this situation to get to safety, or to turn around and run as fast as we can in the opposite direction. So we need our legs for that. And obviously for differently abled bodies, those responses will be, it will still be a physical response, but then it'll be kind of hindered by the different capacities that a body has. Also at this point, just to mention that TRE works beautifully with all bodies of all ages. So that's kind of how our body works. So we've got this hot mess that's released into these psoas muscle group. It immediately responds in whatever way is possible. However, when we can't run or we cannot fight our way out of it, that level of chemical cocktail that's moving through the body, if it has no out, it becomes incredibly overwhelming, and the body literally shuts down, which is what happens in that fetal position. Because it can't, we become like a possum. You know what I mean? There's the threat, and our body shut down until such time as that threat is left, because no predator will go after it. Well, obviously there are, what do you call them, scavengers. But that's in the details. And then the beautiful thing that happens is once the threat seems to have passed and the nervous system is able to get that information, then the psoas muscle group start to vibrate. And this is part of our design. This is not something that's coming from me or any other TRE practitioner and kind of putting it on the body like a choreographer. It is already existing inside all of our bodies. It's what we share with all mammals. So that vibration is called a neurogenic tremor. And people often get a bit concerned that what is that, like a seizure? Is it massive? No, it's not. It's actually just a very deep vibration of these muscles. And what the point of that is to warm the body from very deep down inside, and then to, from the center outwards, begin to radiate this kind of softening and releasing of all of those kind of historic chemical buildup that happens trauma after trauma. And trauma is just those moments, those events that where we don't feel safe, we feel under threat. But none of this can happen at all if we are not feeling safe in a TRE environment. So it's really important that, you know, I can speak for myself, is that the environment where I see clients is calm, that I am, you know, I watch my tone, there's a therapeutic tone, not that it's kind of fully, you know, overly conscious, but it's what is cultivated through this work. I'm sure you know that. And so in order to bring that kind of, that level of safety or groundedness into the space and into the person that I might be working with, is we do breath work. And breath work has really, it is the this kind of foundation of the grounding, you know what I mean?
Mm.
I use a whole lot of different techniques, visualizations, breath work, and very importantly, what I love is a process called heart math, which is about brain heart coherence. So bringing everything back into the same frequency, getting our entire systems into that groove, functioning towards the same goal, which is to find this kind of centeredness. So breath work features very strongly. In fact, I spend a fair amount of time. And then there are about 7 exercises that Dr. David Baselli, who is the gentleman who just built this incredible modality after observing bodies for a long time and in very intense war-torn countries. So breath work is a thing, then the 7 exercises. And here's where I change things up quite a bit because of my background. I do all manner of somatic exercises, embodied practice, a lot of getting rid of. So I find that a lot of people just do not have a very healthy relationship with anger, and it kind of moves often into rage when that is not acknowledged as being right. My boundaries have been overstepped. I am angry. There's a reason why. Get rid of that, and then I'm okay. So they tend to, and I'm one of them. Really, just suppressing. I'm not an angry person. I don't get angry, but of course we all do, and that's important to acknowledge because it's part of who we are. It has a purpose. So I have developed a kind of practice that is more somatically conscious, I think. A lot of expansion and contraction, a lot of flow, and I have a few kind of improvisational exercises that I do around the person's name. Yeah, it's often very effective. And then after that, we'll go down and be on the mat, and that's when the process of the TRE, the actual vibration, begins. And always slow and steady in the beginning. Yeah.
So if I can just make sure I understand, that there's some stuff that you do to prepare for it, to get in the right frame of mind, the right energy, the calm and relaxed and connected with yourself kind of situation. And then you start with the release exercise. Is that correct?
Okay. Right.
I'm sure as a dancer that you come up with interesting movements and somatic exercise. You mentioned opening up and closing. Yeah, that's
I think it's important that we kind of experience the full spectrum or the full range of these different ways of being inside our bodies, because the body cannot lie. It doesn't have the capacity, you know what I mean? We can be in denial to within an inch of our lives for our entire lives and all the time, but the body just is not able. Every cell has memory of our lifetimes plus generations before.
Yeah.
In there sits information from ancestors about how they survived their own trials and tribulations. That now has become something part of my programming, which is this intergenerational stuff that is, that is very important in breaking those cycles or disrupting them. But we can only do that when we're aware, that we live in our lives and it become part of our story, the role that we play. So the various movements are based on, often a client will come and we will do a check-in, and some of the verbs or the action words coming through in that check-in, I will then work around, work with, the exercise part, or the getting the body ready for the TRE really is about fatiguing the muscles, so that they don't want to be so completely in control of the process all of the time. And how we do that is just to, kind of prod them, bring them up in our consciousness. There's my calf muscle, because we can walk through life and not really even think about the calf muscle until it tinges or it gives you a bit of a problem, or, says, hey, can you just listen to me for a second? Or we sprain an ankle. But otherwise, we're just kind of moving through life almost in this, just walking without really being
just
conscious.
keep going without paying any attention. Hey,
Right.
yeah.
So there are a lot of things that are happening in that moment before we go down onto the mat, and that is really just connecting and listening. This idea of really compassionately listening to what is this body saying to me? What is this kind of bloating sensation I have in my gut? What am I holding on to? If a spastic colon suddenly is really just a knotting from stress.
So just for those who don't know, it's not exercise per se, it's just some movements that you do. It's not strenuous exercise, the preparation.
Not at all. In fact, that's the furthest of what it is. It is to continue to encourage that groundedness and very much the sensation. It's called interoception, actually. So that's what we're cultivating, is this real strong awareness of what's going on inside of my body physiologically. Like, where am I feeling the flow? How do I identify a little bit of a block here? And then as a practitioner, I am watching and observing all the time, because all the clues, all the information remain in the body that remembers everything that has ever happened, and cannot lie, and cannot make you believe anything different than what is actually happening.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I really believe that the body is this incredible living organism, almost like a cosmos, and we need to go inward and listen more. I feel that.
Yes, very, very well said. We need to go in on a regular basis and listen well. So once we've prepared everything, what happens then? You said the psoas, this is all revolving around what the psoas muscle is going to do. I'm picturing it in my mind because I know it's a large muscle group. So the tremors happen, what's the word I'm looking for? Spontaneously. It's not a thing that you can do at will. It's something that happens as a result of the preparation that you've done.
Right.
And is that where the tension or the stress or the trauma is released?
So if you can imagine that all this, so all of those, that chemical cocktail, when it's been in the body for a long time, like anything,
The stress hormones and things.
All of that, the cortisol, the adrenaline, and plus all the other chemical reactions inside the body and the brain. once those have been released into the body, if they're not released out of the body through various, it's a physical action actually that is needed. And that remains inside the body for a long time. Like anything that is hot, it's got to cool down.
Yes.
And when it cools down into almost microscopic little grains, almost like salt, but much, much, much smaller. And so those compound on top of each other, layer. That's the onion, right? That's the layer by layer by layer of threat that still remains in the body if it's not released. And so that those also, they settle inside our fascia. And fascia is wrapped around every single organ, every bone, between each layer of skin, and it's designed to slide and glide. That's the fascia. When those microscopic rain-like cool down chemicals settle into the fascia, then they absorb all the moisture out of the fascia, and that fascia becomes extremely sticky. And that stickiness that hardens that's what becomes the armor that we then wear. This resistance to softening. So now we can't soften that armor from the outside in. We can try, but those will look like really tight hamstrings, Achilles tendons, knee issues, quads, anything in the hip area, the lower back, the mid-thoracic spine, between the shoulder blades, the neck, shoulders. So if you can imagine that we've got this kind of back body of fascia, right? And if we've got that stuff sitting in our body long enough, what happens, and it's quite a beautiful thing if you think about it, it pulls, through tension, starts to pull the chin closer and closer and closer towards the pubic bone. So what the body's doing is pulling us back into the fetal position, almost like an armadillo.
Yes. Yeah.
The armoring is at the back, and that's to protect the soft bits. So
fascinating.
What often happens with people that have experienced deep trauma and over a very long time is that stooping, and also this is the shame response. So now it's not, you know what I mean? So the whole body starts to speak trauma, speaking that very loud and clear.
Yes.
Now what the TRE does, and it's an involuntary response, so it's the similar kind of sensation if you've ever had a car accident. Once the nervous system clocks that, okay, the danger's over, that the body starts to vibrate, shake, and that's often the point where someone will then bring the sugar water or a fruit, right? Actually, what you're doing is you're doing damage. Only because that is the way that the body is able to release all of those chemicals, right?
Yeah.
So that vibration is what it feels like in the psoas. And of course, everyone has different tension patterns. We develop those over our lifetimes. But that vibration is something we all have. And stop. So now TRE, what that does is that psoas muscle is built to vibrate involuntarily when it needs to go over stuff. That's what we're working with on the mat here. You don't even need the exercises to do TRE. You don't need the exercises, you don't need the grounding, you don't necessarily need it, right? However, we do that so that when the body responds, it doesn't want to let go of everything all at once. Because that's too much, too soon, too quick, and that will be equally as overwhelming as a freeze response. Right. So the practitioner's job, or what my responsibility is to watch that vibration, to observe what is happening. The body's wise, knows what it needs to do, just needs a little bit of a kind of pulling back, because if if it's given half the chance to go, it will go, you know. It also knows, you know, kind of how much, but often our minds get involved and then the mind wants to go, oh no, I can't do that. That's too much. And so that will shut down on its own. Yeah. And then it's very, very slow and very gentle. So I encourage, I mean, for me as a practitioner, one session with a client is lovely, and the benefits will be felt probably for about a week. A lightness of being, because you'll feel a bit of this armoring start to lift, start to lighten a bit. The sensation of this crushing feeling in the inside of the body from all of this armoring up starts to lift. There's a bit more space from all the breathing and the vibration. It's from deep down inside, and that's fantastic. But what it does need, the nervous system needs a couple of hits to really learn to trust the process, because the mind, not the nervous system, knows what it needs to do, but that feeling of safety and learning that this, or discovering that this practice is a very safe practice for the body, takes at least 4 sessions for it to begin to become something sustainable, and then another 2 after that, just to settle it nicely in the body. And then often people don't even feel they need more than that. But 6 sessions is a decent go at getting the nervous system to feel more regulated, to feel more easy about life. Things become more manageable. And what it does most beautifully is it enriches the sense of curiosity about what's going on in the inside of my body. Okay, what am I feeling? Not a hypervigilance. It's a very different energy to it, but rather, oh, okay, what am I feeling? Just put my hand on my body and on my belly, and let me just breathe a moment and acknowledge that this is what I'm feeling, so that I can let it go, you know?
It's like a calm observation or a curiosity about what's going on.
Yeah.
And that is so counter what we are raised to do in most cultures. It's so much the opposite of what we are taught.
Right, right. And this is the thing that comes up in my room all the time. It's like, I just can't, you know?
Don't know how.
I don't know how. How are you? I don't know. Or what does that feel like? I don't know. I don't know. You know, we're not connected to this inner environment that governs how we experience the outer environment, really, at the end of the day. But this is not part of our education at all. I mean, as a dancer, I had no idea of what the
Yes.
nervous system was doing. You know what I mean?
So if I've had now 4 or 6 sessions, is that the end of it, or does it become something I can continue to do by myself?
Right. Thank you for that question. Very important. TRE as a modality is actually designed or introduced as a self-help or self-care tool. So you don't need a practitioner to engage with TRE. In fact, past the 4 or 6 and through the process is this gentle kind of beginning of own practice. You know? So from about session 3 or 4, then start to say, right, try it on your own here, and then get reflection back on that. How are you doing? What kind of tremors did you experience? Did you, because there's various ways that the body can experience that, through stretching, through, you can tremor lying on your back, which is kind of an infant body experience. Sitting up, which is your more kind of later childhood teen experience of releasing from that, because it's got more control, so you feel more empowered in that experience for some. And then standing, you can tremor standing as well, which is dance, pure and absolute dance. And this is what I think of TRE, is it's literally dancing inside. That's what it feels like. The body just wants to do that stuff. So the encouragement is to do your own practice or one's own practice at home, so that past session 6, I will, like people come back, of course, because they found that they're able to let go much more when they're facilitated, but also to know that you have this tool to be able to let go of the things that you don't need anymore, that you're able to do if somebody is having an experience that is very, very uncomfortable, that they can just pull themselves, go to the bathroom, and tremor, or in the car. I have a colleague who tremors in her car every now and then after traffic, or, it just depends on your sensitivity to various things in the world. So that is important, is that it is encouraged so that you can take it. It's yours. It belongs to you. It doesn't belong to anybody else, this modality. It's 100% your body, your experience, very empowered. Excuse me, I just need 5 minutes and I'm going to go. I'm going to breathe a little bit, and then I'm going to tremor a little bit, and then I'm going to self-regulate so that everything kind of comes back to its normal. And I'm going to rest for about a minute, and then I'm good to go. You know what I mean?
Fantastic. And there's no talking about it going on, no talking about what happened or what.
No, so that is not necessary. In terms of the TRE, you don't have to speak about your trauma. You don't have to revisit your trauma. However, I do have to say that clients generally, once that psoas muscle has started to soften and the armor is starting to kind of give, and the foot is taken off the brake, people want to speak. So that space is available 100%, but it's not necessary at all. And then I think, Sinta, if it's okay with you, is just to introduce at this point the idea of group TRE. Also quite a beautiful experience.
Interesting.
And why I say that? Yeah. So it's co-regulation, basically. And I think what has been so beautiful to uncover is my nervous system speaks to your nervous system, and everybody else in a close proximity. They speak to each other, and that is a very human experience, because through others and that connection to others, there is this sense of coming together and feeling fully connected. Which, as
and that's so important, because it's the disconnection from people that makes it harder for us to deal with the hardships of life.
Exactly. And in fact, that connection and that sharing of oneself within that safe environment, for me, feels like the perfect example of Ubuntu, right? So that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, but the sum of its parts, so that every person that is contributing, we contribute anywhere just by existing, that contributes to this whole, becomes even more deeply connected both inside, so we connect to ourselves, and finds safety in a group of others. And I think, especially in this 21st century tech age, this disconnection is probably the biggest source of trauma that our world is experiencing at the moment, because we grow through our experiences with others. We transform, mature, we learn things. That connection is so beautiful. So last year, I work with a lot of groups in very different settings, different communities, organizations, NGOs, those kinds of places. But last year I did something a bit different, and I ran consecutively 2 6-week group sessions at a beautiful building here in Mowbray called Bertha House. And it's a building soul, really. I was able to run 2 6 weeks, so one group of 10 and another group of 9. Through this, I've designed a 6-week groups process that really was almost poetic in its way. The people coming from everywhere, all
Mhm.
kinds of backgrounds, that these people came together, and by the end of the 6 weeks, bonds were formed, healing happened,
Mm.
processes were kind of seen through, some closure, and it's those types of co-regulated group situations that are, for me, the most beautiful.
Yeah. And it's also a beautiful experience to be witnessed as we do our work or as we work through our grief or loss or, whatever kind of trauma it is. It's beautiful to be witnessed and honored. And it
Yes,
sounds like a wonderful experience.
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And that freedom comes with safety, and that's
Mm.
cultivated,
Yeah.
and encouraged.
Mm.
So I'm very excited, and certainly this year I will continue to do that. For me, that
Yes.
is very, very meaningful. I mean,
That
this
sounds.
work is just genuinely meaningful. There's nothing in it that feels artificial in any way, and that is exactly where I choose to be.
Mm.
You know, I don't
It's
want to.
it's very, very interesting. And I know I have some clients myself who know and are aware that they have trauma that they want to work with, but they're not keen to go for talk therapy, or they're not keen to
Mhm.
really revisit everything and relive everything. So
Mhm.
they will opt for something like TRE because it's an effective process. It's the physical or the somatic thing, which we all know is what we need to do. We can talk about our trauma ad nausea. It helps us to make sense of it and gain an understanding into our behavioral patterns and our beliefs and things, but we do need to do the physical work as well. And I find that people prefer that. Some people prefer to just do that. What I experienced myself with TRE is that some emotions that come up, sometimes some tears ran. Sometimes I would know it would be so specifically what it was, and sometimes it was just emotions surfacing and I wouldn't really know where it came from, what caused it, what the root of it was, and that was okay. I didn't need to know or go and dig in there and uncover it because the work had been done. The physical effect or the desired impact had happened. So it's a wonderful experience and something that I really recommend to people who you know, are interested in doing things that way.
Hmm. Yeah. Sure, that is so true. I mean that what you've just spoken about, where this. So if we think about emotion as energy in motion, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of clients and group clients, if they feel emotion coming up, because it is that sense, it's literally coming from
Mm.
the soul. Feel the sensation coming up, and if there are tears, people completely freak out
Mm.
because crying is not allowed.
Yeah.
It's the same as this tremoring mechanism is seen as some kind of weakness.
Yeah.
But if you take, obviously, there are different kinds of tears, but those tears, the ones where you didn't really know what it was that was
Mm.
why you were experiencing this emotional response, had you maybe taken one of those tears and put them under a microscope, what you would
Mm-hmm.
have seen was a whole lot of adrenaline and cortisol.
Mm. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because
Mm.
that's what's stuck in the body. Crying to judge this kind of natural, physical, human experience of release as
Mm.
something that is not acceptable is just more suppression of what is. And that's exactly, it just is what it is. And like you said, sometimes you can just put your finger on, that's that experience.
Mm.
That experience has just come up. It's clear and forefront in my mind, and sometimes not.
Mm.
Sometimes it's just that. And if you allow it to just come up, let it wash over and flow, then it's gone. Literally,
And
whatever
let
it
it go.
was that was
Yeah.
sitting there, it's now left. It's no longer taking up space. So wherever that was sitting, an organ has a little more space to expand or to move as it needs to. A muscle's able to unhook from whatever it might be hooked to, or a bit of fascia can soften and start to slide and glide. And so, incrementally, the steps are ultimately about reaching this place where there is a sense of joy and connection. So if we can just keep our eye on the ball, then these things you understand why they're coming up, is in order to get to that place where you're able to regulate. And, to be regulated doesn't mean to be flatlined. It's not like
No,
when
it doesn't.
you take an various medications or whatever, and people often, I've had that experience of an antidepressant and taking it, an SSRI, and then you just feel like you're just not engaging in your life at all. In fact, you're watching it from a distance. You don't
Yes.
have any sensations of, So that regulation is about riding a wave and having enough energy to be able to sustain whatever it is that you need.
Yes, definitely.
Today. So that's where we want to get to. It's that place where things feel, even when you get those little peaks and valleys, that they aren't so extreme that the drop is from a height that will cause some kind of.
There's a big lesson in this for us, because it's so important to express the physical movement that our bodies feel the urge to do. You mentioned the sugar water thing earlier. We are so used to, in many cultures, when you've experienced something shocking or frightening or whatever, drink the sugar water, and we actually inhibit the natural processes that need to happen for us to cope, because our bodies are designed and fully equipped to deal with the stuff by itself. And if we only allow it to do what it wants to do or what it needs to do and let it take its course, we would be far less ill. We'd be far healthier, because the body has its own way and knows what it needs. But we've managed over the years, probably over centuries, to just ignore it and suppress it and do all sorts of other things that are actually bad for it. So this has been a very interesting conversation, and I'm so grateful that we got a bit of an explanation of what TRE is and how the body actually needs it. It's actually something we all need to do, because everybody has experienced trauma at some point, somewhere in their lives.
Yeah. Everyone. Every single person. There's not one person untouched from it. It's part of our human experience.
That's right. Yeah. Ananda, thank you so much. This has been enlightening. I'm very grateful for your contribution. Once again, thank you, and I hope to maybe have you back again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sinta. It's been great. Lovely to talk about the work, and also just to share,
Yeah.